Elon Musk just took nearly $1 billion away from Florida. And you know what? Ron DeSantis begged him to do it. That's crazy, right? But when you find out why, it's going to make a lot more sense and piss you off a little bit. This isn't about losing money. It's about flipping the script on how states deal with the federal government. See, the feds love handing out your cash to states with strings attached. They use your tax dollars to force states into more rules, more regulations, and less freedom. But not here. Florida just did something no other states ever had the guts to do. We gave the money back. And the system was so broken, Washington didn't even know how to accept it. This story's got waste, power plays, and Elon Musk helping Florida do something that could change the game forever. Let's jump in. All right, so here's the deal. 2 years ago, the federal government gave Florida almost $1 billion. $878 million to be exact. The Fed loves handing out your cash to the states, but it almost always comes with new rules, new laws, and a whole bunch of federal overreach. And that's exactly what happened here. Now, DeSantis, he said that ain't happening in Florida. He wasn't about to let the Biden administration tell him how to run the greatest state in the country. So when they dropped $878 million on the table, he basically looked at it and said, yeah, no thanks. Now, I don't know what every dollar of that $878 million was for, but we do know $320 million of it came from Biden's so-called infrastructure deal. Sounds helpful, right? But if we took the money, Florida would have been forced to start tracking tailpipe emissions on every single vehicle. And that's just the start. Once that door opens, here comes the fees, the red tape, and the endless regulations. DeSantis said flat out, I'm not going to be the tailpipe police. And honestly, I love that. So instead of letting DC cram a bunch of federal nonsense down our throats, DeSantis told them to keep their money. He even told them, use it to pay down the national debt. And here's the part that really matters. Florida was the only state in the country with the guts to say no. Every other state took the cash, strings and all. But we didn't have to. Why? Because we actually manage our money. Florida's sitting on a budget surplus. We're not broke. We're not begging. We're not taking bait from a government that can't stop digging itself deeper into debt. Now, here's where it gets nuts. You would think that giving money back to Biden's federal government would have been simple, right? Just send it back. Wrong. There wasn't even a system in place to do it. I'm serious. No way for a state to return federal funds because no one's ever done it before. That's how broken Washington is. They've built this whole machine to hand out your money, but not a single way to take it back. Now, this is where my man Elon Musk and his team of badass nerds from the Department of Government Efficiency come in, or DOGE for short. Do you know he's got a guy on the crew who's actually named Big Balls? True story. Anywho, these guys are on a mission. They've been digging through federal budgets and calling out some of the most ridiculous, straight up wasteful spending you've ever heard of. Like $74 million for inclusive justice in Colombia. I don't even know what that means. Or $699,000 to study cannabis use in sexual minority gender diverse individuals. What? And $10 million for voluntary male circumcisions in Mozambique. I wish I was joking about that. When you paid your taxes, that's where your money went. Elon exposed all this waste, and for some reason, people are mad at him? Moving on. So it's been over 2 years that DeSantis has been trying to return the $878 million. Then, boom, he meets with Elon and the DOGE team, and all the money gets returned in 1 day. That's a difference between people who actually solve problems and politicians who just cry on TV after they get caught blowing your money. DeSantis even sent a letter to the U.S. Treasury to make it official. He wrote, at the direction of Governor DeSantis and following his meeting with Elon Musk today, the state of Florida is formally returning $878,112 in taxpayer dollars to the federal government as part of DOGE's efforts. The specifics are below. We will also continue to identify other unused or surplus federal funding granted to Florida and determine if further refunds can be made. We hope our actions serve as a model for other states to follow. Now, don't forget, this is our money that they're throwing around. Money taken from our paychecks through income taxes, fees, and every little thing they can get their hands on. So to see Florida not only send it back, but do it on purpose just to make a point, that's why this state is unbeatable. We got palm trees, freedom, and the only governor in America who doesn't play games. I love the fact that Uncle Ronnie D would rather send back money than impose new bureaucratic laws on Florida residents. So if the feds didn't even care when Florida tried to return $878 million, you gotta ask, how much more is slipping through the cracks every single year? Let's break it down. In fiscal year 2022, the federal government handed out a whopping $1.1 trillion in grants to the states. Those dollars made up about 36.4% of total state revenue. That's over a third of what the states are running on. And if you're wondering how much of that gets wasted, the answer is zero. No, I'm lying. I'm just making sure you're still paying attention. The real number's actually going to piss you off. The Government Accountability Office dropped some figures, and after doing a little math, we can guess that about $45 billion of that $1.1 trillion just disappears into the cracks. We're talking around 4% in pure waste. Money that was supposed to help people, but ends up doing absolutely nothing. $45 billion gone, like it never even existed. That's not a rounding error, that's your tax dollars going up in smoke. Now here's one example that really fired me up. Back in 2022, long before Doge and Elon Musk stepped in, the federal government dropped $50 million on a program called Visit Tunisia to boost tourism over there. I'm not kidding, $50 million of our money went to hype up someone else's beaches while U.S. citizens were scraping by. And that's straight out of Senator Rand Paul's 2022 Festivus report, where he calls out all this ridiculous spending. And get this, Tunisia was already pulling in over $1 billion in tourism back in 2019. So what was the money really for? And let's not forget, 2022 was the same year Hurricane Ian ripped through Florida. Over 150 people died, and it cost $113 billion in damage. But instead of putting that money into rebuilding here at home, we were helping tourists book vacations in North Africa? Yeah, I think helping U.S. citizens in Florida would have been a better investment than Tunisia's hotel scene, but that's just me. Rand Paul's been blowing the whistle on this kind of crap for years, and he's got the receipts. This is what happens when nobody's watching the checkbook. And that's exactly why Doge matters, because without real accountability, this nonsense never stops. And even though it's easy to point fingers at Washington, let me ask you a question. Do you think there's a chance your local government might be wasting money too? I'm talking about your local counties, cities, school boards, where a whole lot of your property tax dollars disappear without much explanation. These are the people spending your money every single day, and in many cases, no one's really watching how they're doing it. Here in Florida, we've already seen shady stuff go down. Just look at Hillsborough County. One commissioner, Joshua Wostel, blew the whistle after learning that over $250 million in taxpayer money had been handed out to nonprofits and NGOs over the last decade. And guess what? According to Wostel, there's almost zero oversight. No process for how these groups were picked, no follow-up to see if the money was used right, and in some cases, commissioners were allegedly setting up organizations they could cash in on once they left office. That's your property tax money going straight into a black hole, or worse. And this isn't just happening in one county. You think Hillsborough is the only place pulling this nonsense? You think the county you live in is squeaky clean? Come on. This kind of behavior is exactly why people are fed up with local government. If your local officials are fighting against transparency, that should tell you everything you need to know. When people in power don't want oversight, it's usually because they got something to hide. But listen, it's not all doom and gloom in Florida. I got some great news. Luckily, we got a governor who's finally said enough is enough. DeSantis is bringing the Doge system right here to Florida, not just to check out what's happening in DC, but to go after waste, fraud, and abuse inside our own state government. And he's not stopping at just state agencies either. DeSantis is trying to get all 67 counties and local municipalities on board. So far, only Bay County has stepped up and volunteered for a Doge audit. And I gotta say, I respect the hell out of the Bay County commissioners. They get it. That's what taxpayers want. Real transparency, not excuses. But where's everybody else? Why are the other 66 counties dragging their feet? If local government's got nothing to hide, what's the holdup? And here's where this gets really interesting for you and me. All of this ties into the bigger conversation happening in Florida right now. eliminating property taxes. Yeah, you heard that right. Property taxes have been sucking the life out of homeowners all across the country for decades. It's one of the most oppressive taxes we've got. And now, Florida is going to do something about it. The state legislators are finally having the conversation about either scrapping property taxes altogether or at least raising the homestead exemption to give people some much needed help. Either way, the fact that we're even talking about this is a big deal. And it's all thanks to Elon's Doge program showing us how much of our money is being wasted by politicians. I actually did a full video breaking down how we could get rid of property taxes in Florida without cutting a single essential service. I'm talking police, fire, roads, schools, all of it stays. The money is there. We just have to stop wasting it. And Doge Florida is going to be the tool we need to make it happen. Look, Florida's paradise. And part of what makes it that way is we've got leadership that actually respects taxpayers. That's what this is really about. Voting in people who understand how hard you work for your money and who are willing to cut the waste, the fraud, and the nonsense spending. Having a budget surplus puts Florida in a power position. It means we don't have to play by DC's rules or chase federal handouts that come with strings attached. When the bureaucratic machine tries to dangle money in front of us in exchange for more control, we can tell them no thanks. So if you live here, vote for leaders who will keep it that way. And if you don't, you might want to pack up and move to paradise. We've got sunshine, freedom, and the guts to push back when it matters. And speaking of pushing back, click here to see why finally Florida is banning this. You've seen all those white streaks in the skies left by airplanes, right? Now find out what they really are and what the state's going to do to stop it. Click here and I'll see you there.